Last video, I promised you one thing to check in any woodworking plan in 30 seconds before you buy a single piece of wood. Here it is. Look for the cutting list. Not the materials section, not the you'll need approximately X board feet, the actual cutting list. Every piece listed by name with exact dimensions in the sequence you'll cut them. If it's not there, the plan is incomplete. You don't need 30 more seconds. That one check tells you everything. Let me make this concrete. 3 sources most woodworkers use. A magazine plan. Open to the materials section. Does it say approximately 40 board feet of oak, or does it list every piece with dimensions? If it says approximately, it fails the test. Stop there. A YouTube video. Pause at the materials list on screen or check the description. Is every piece listed with exact dimensions, or is it a rough guide? If it's a rough guide, it fails. A downloaded PDF. Same check. Find the cutting list. If there isn't one, the plan was never finished. Someone drew a project and published it before the work was done. 30 seconds. One check. You'll know immediately whether the plan is worth your Saturday. Now here's the part that surprises most people when I tell them. This test catches beginners by surprise. That's expected. But the woodworkers I've seen lose the most material to incomplete plans aren't beginners. They're experienced woodworkers. And they fail for a different reason than beginners do, which is what I want to talk about in the rest of this video, because it's the mistake I see most often in woodworkers who've been building for years and still can't figure out why their projects keep going wrong. Before I get into the 3 errors, quick note. The resource I use that passes this test on every single plan is linked in the description. That's where I'd start if you want to stop running this test manually every time you need a plan. Link is below. Back to the errors. Error 1. Trusting the source instead of testing the plan. A beginner uses a plan because it was the first one that showed up in a search. An experienced woodworker uses a plan because it came from a magazine they've trusted for years, or a channel they follow, or a book they've had on the shelf since the 90s. And that trust, which is reasonable to have, becomes the reason they skip the test. This magazine has never let me down before. Maybe. But this specific plan, in this specific issue, was written by someone who had the same blind spot I described in video 6. The source doesn't change the plan. The plan is either complete or it isn't. Experience teaches you to build better. It doesn't teach you to evaluate plans better, unless you specifically learn how. Most woodworkers never do. Error 2. Skipping the test because the weekend is already planned. You have a Saturday, the lumber yard closes at 5, you found a plan Thursday night and it looked good enough, you didn't run the cutting list check because you were going to figure it out as you went. I've seen this happen dozens of times. The experienced woodworker improvises better than the beginner, so they get further into the project before it falls apart, which means when it does fall apart, they've wasted more material, more time, and more of a weekend than a beginner would have. Experience doesn't protect you from an incomplete plan. It just means you fail at a more expensive stage. Error 3. And this is the one that costs the most because it's the hardest to see. Confusing familiarity with completeness. When you've built enough projects, you start filling in gaps automatically. The plan says attach using standard joinery, and you know what that means because you've done it before. So the plan feels complete. It isn't. But you can't tell because your experience is doing the work the plan should be doing. The problem happens when the project pushes slightly past what you've done before, when the joint is different, when the dimension is unusual, when the material behaves differently than you expect. At that moment, the plan you thought was complete stops, and your experience isn't enough to fill the gap because it's a gap you've never had to fill before. The more experienced you are, the harder this is to see coming, because the plan has never let you down before, until the one time it does. 3 errors, different causes, same result. A project that stops because the plan stopped first. The fix is the same for all 3. Stop trusting the source and start testing the plan. Every time. 30 seconds. Cutting list check. If it passes, continue. If it doesn't, find a different plan. The resource I mentioned earlier, linked in the description, is the one I use specifically to avoid running this test every time. Every plan in the library has already passed it. Complete cutting list on every project. No manual check needed. Link is below if you're done testing plans that fail. Next video, I'm going to show you something specific about what happens to woodworking projects after they stop. Not the ones that get abandoned, the ones that sit in the garage for months and then get picked back up. There's a specific reason most of them never get finished even the second time, and it's not what you think. That's next.